Think you know everything about the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370? Think again. There's something they didn't tell you when the plane first vanished, something that changes the entire story. And what if I told you that something was hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered years later? Let's dive into the details no one's talking about. March 8th, 2014. The world was stunned when Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared from radar. It was supposed to be a routine flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, but it never made it. 239 people, passengers and crew, vanished without a trace. And here's the kicker. We were told one thing about the plane's last moments, but later, we discovered something else entirely. What happened? And why do we still not have answers? The mystery has gripped the world for years, but there's more to this story than we were first led to believe. So if you think you know everything about this incident, think again. The truth might surprise you. Now let's talk about what we were told and what we now know. When MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, everything seemed normal. But just 1 hour into the flight at 1:19 a.m. local time, the plane disappeared from radar. Now, here's where things get interesting. We were told the plane simply lost contact. No distress signal, no emergency calls, just a sudden disappearance. But months later, satellite data revealed something we weren't told at first. The plane didn't just vanish. It was still flying, still communicating with satellites, even after it disappeared from radar. These signals, known as handshakes, suggested the plane had flown for hours after losing radar contact. This crucial piece of information was hidden for a while, and when it finally came to light, the search had already shifted in the wrong direction. The real search area was much farther south, in the Indian Ocean, not over the South China Sea, where authorities initially focused. When MH370's pilots last spoke to air traffic control, it was an innocuous exchange. "All right, good night," Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah said. Those were the final words we heard from the cockpit. We were told it was just a routine goodbye. But what if those words weren't as simple as they seemed? What if they were the last sign that something had already gone horribly wrong? Later, investigators found that these good night words came just minutes before the plane took a sudden, unexplained turn off its planned route. At the time, this detail was downplayed, but now it raises the question, did the pilots know something was wrong? Or was something else happening inside that cockpit? 3. How satellite data revealed new secrets. Satellite data. Let's talk about the satellite data, something that changed the course of the investigation. The so-called handshakes between the plane and Inmarsat satellites were pivotal in narrowing down the plane's final path. Initially, we were told that the plane may have gone down somewhere near the South China Sea, but that was far from the truth. Inmarsat data showed the plane veered south into the Indian Ocean, a vast, desolate region that is among the most remote on Earth. And this wasn't just a one-time anomaly. These handshakes occurred every hour, telling investigators the plane was still flying for hours after it should have been out of fuel. The shocking part? This wasn't revealed until months later. For a long time, the search area was off by thousands of miles, which meant precious time was wasted. What the authority hide? About the initial efforts. The initial search was a disaster. Countries like Malaysia, Vietnam, and China scrambled to find the missing plane in the South China Sea. But there was nothing. The search seemed like a massive global effort. But we now know it was based on inaccurate information. Here's the part no one really talked about at the time. Early data suggested the plane had made a dramatic turn off its intended path, yet the search continued in the wrong area for months. The satellite data revealed the plane was on a completely different flight path, southward, toward the southern Indian Ocean. But by the time this was confirmed, the search area had already been drastically miscalculated. If the search had been focused on the Indian Ocean sooner, the wreckage could have been found much earlier. What was actually happened on that day? Let's get to the theories, because there are a lot of them. What could have caused this plane to disappear in the way it did? We were initially told that mechanical failure or a hijacking could be at fault. But as the investigation dragged on, new theories emerged, some of which were downright chilling. One of the most controversial ideas that surfaced was the possibility that the plane's captain, Zahari, may have deliberately flown off course. Some believe that a personal motive or mental health issues could have played a role. But this was never proven. Others pointed to mechanical failure, things like fire, depressurization, or an electrical malfunction. The theory here is that the plane could have lost power, causing it to fly on autopilot until it eventually ran out of fuel. And let's not forget the possibility of hijacking. Early reports suggested that 2 passengers on board were traveling with stolen passports. Could this have been the work of terrorists? While that was speculated for months, no solid evidence was found to support it. The search for MH370 took a dramatic turn when the focus shifted from the South China Sea to the southern Indian Ocean. But even then, the task was daunting. The ocean floor is incredibly deep, and using underwater sonar technology made it one of the most difficult search operations in history. We were told that searching the ocean would take years, but it wasn't until new technologies like underwater drones and autonomous vehicles came into play that things began to look promising. The search efforts were far from over, and investigators still believe that with the right tools, MH370's final resting place could be found. And here's a twist you probably didn't know. There are still private search groups and individuals pushing for answers, using new technologies to explore areas that weren't previously considered. The mystery might not be over just yet. The emotional toll on the families of the passengers is something we don't often hear about. We were told these families would get closure once the wreckage was found. But for many, that closure never came. The psychological impact has been devastating. For years, they didn't know if their loved ones were alive or dead, and even now, many families continue to fight for accountability. The pain of not knowing is something that stays with them. Despite the debris found on shores in the Indian Ocean like a flapper, and there are still no definitive answers. These families, many of whom have spoken out publicly, continue to demand justice and an explanation, something that's still missing today. Now, the last question is, will we ever know what happened? As of now, the mystery of MH370 remains unsolved. Despite years of searching, the plane has never been fully recovered. The last official search ended in 2018, but that doesn't mean the investigation is over. Some believe new technologies could still hold the key to finding the wreckage, and we might just get new leads in the future. The real facts, the hidden details, and the unanswered questions keep us searching for answers. And while we might never fully know what happened to MH370, the investigation has already changed how we think about flight safety forever. If you liked this video, make sure to thumbs up because that will encourage me a lot. And subscribe to stay updated with more videos like this. And one more thing, thanks for watching.